Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight's episode we are covering on our Xtreme TV show here, Twin Peaks Season 3, Episode 5. I'm joined by the Millennial Man himself, Professor Pixel, a.k.a. I don't know what we're calling him this week. I guess no special name tonight, huh, Pixel?
Well, Prof. Peaks works. Prof. Pixel. There we go.
You go. I thought you might have went with Professor Dougie or something, Dougie Pixel, because tonight's episode 5 again of Season 3 of Twin Peaks, for my initial thoughts is, it's not a dark episode, but it's not a funny episode. There's some things in it. This is an interesting episode to me. So I'm not going to say it's fun, but it's interesting. And there definitely seems to be a lot of developments that, add even more to some of the strands that we've left out there too, that are just fermenting and nothing's moved forward to. But overall, I enjoyed this episode more than the last one. So I'm just pleasantly surprised at how well things are turning out so far here, 5 episodes into this third and maybe not final season of Twin Peaks. But what are your initial thoughts, sir?
Well, my initial thoughts is I enjoy this episode too, and there's actually a very specific reason why I prefer this episode over the others thus far, but I'll go into that when we get there. I think the best way to go ahead and the best way to talk about this episode
you want to start with the case files. Yeah, go ahead.
We are after the intro, which is growing on me. It really is. It's odd still to be away from Twin Peaks when the show is Twin Peaks, but I really do enjoy this intro. But we then cut to the city once again, and we see the guy that just a few episodes tried to snipe Dougie.
Yep.
Can't be a good guy. And he is on the phone with a woman, and a woman then after the call ends, goes ahead and gets on her phone to get in contact with someone. And she has this device, and Argent 2 is who or what she is contacting. And we're not sure what this is yet, but we're going to have to wait and see. Then we get a quick scene to the body that was not connected, but with the decapitated head of Esther, I think her name was, the librarian that Bill Hastings apparently had killed.
It's stooping. Yes.
What?
It's having relations with. I said stooping for the older crowd.
Yes. And the lady there, who I recognize as Niles' short-lived wife on Frasier, is trying to give some jokes, but the detective there's just not taking it. She goes to explain that he hadn't eaten in a long while, and the only thing they found in his stomach was a ring inscribed to Dougie with love, Jane E.
Yeah. I think the opening scene here is interesting because, again, one thing that we talked about with the original Twin Peaks, especially with season 2, is adding these characters in, and we didn't know if they'd be major, minor. Sometimes we felt like they were major because their story arc was really quick. Some of them weren't, and so we're definitely getting a lot of them here. But you get the 2 assassins there that this lady apparently hired. And to me, I don't know what Argent is, but we'll know what it is when we get there. Obviously, it's a play off of Argentina, Buenos Aires, which is a callback to something when we get to that scene here towards the end, which I think is kind of neat. So it brings in Fire Walk With Me, the character played by David Bowie. That would be Officer... What's his name?
Oh.
That guy. We'll talk more about that when we get there. But it was neat because all of a sudden, we see these guys that they're familiar because we've seen them in these muscle cars. We've seen this lady before quickly. We don't really know what exactly is going on. We know the one guy's name is Gene just because of the way they're talking. But to me, bringing in something from Fire Walk With Me is really, really cool because we saw some stuff in there that I really liked, and we're getting a little bit of a touch of it in here as well. But I agree with you. This next scene to me, Miss Talbot, the lady that is doing all the discovery work. There's a show that I used to watch. It's one of my favorite comedy shows on TV, and I don't watch a lot of them. I hate laugh tracks. This one's called Psych, and it's about a guy that had a great um, his father taught him how to be a great detective by visualizing situations and stuff. But he pretended, Sean Spencer was his name, to be a psychic. But because he solved the initial in the pilot episode, an episode of murder, he has to keep that act up, and then he's got his buddy, and it's just a fun little goofy show. It's been on for a really, really long time. But they introduced successfully a very good character named Woody, who was just really bizarre, and he was the guy that was the coroner, and it was just kind of odd watching this guy do it, but he was so good. This lady, Miss Talbot, reminds me exactly of Woody. I mean, if you're a fan of Psych, you'll love this. I know Psych, they're big, huge fans of Twin Peaks. A part of me just goes, wow, it seems to be almost too much of a coincidence the way she's acting too, because before she was kind of serious, and now she's got jokes for the detective, Mr. Mackley and Mr. Harrison, and it's like, okay. The ring, though, that did get pulled out, like you said. It happens to be, doesn't look like it's an owl or agent type ring. It looks like it's just a regular ring. But hey, we know Dougie's still alive and still around. We don't know what he is because he's not Good Cooper and he's not Doppelgänger. So this will be interesting here.
Just side note, in Psych, I believe it's episode 12 of the fifth season.
Yeah, where they do the Twin Peaks.
Yeah, Dual Spires.
Dual Spires. Yeah. Oh yeah, Bobby's in it and everything too. It's cool. Yeah, it's neat. From there, because these are really quick scenes here, nothing really too formative in here. We get Doppelgänger talking to stuff about food coming in to his jail cell, and he gets it. There's a neat little sequence here where he kind of looks at himself in the mirror, and it's like a throwback where you see Bob and Doppelgänger in the Red Room from earlier in the show, kind of laughing at each other with their demented eyes, and Dale bashing his head in at the end of season 2. That was really just a phenomenal thing. Not much to it, but what is new is the next scene. So anything you want to comment on before jumping into this next scene?
Yeah, there actually is, because Doppelgänger, when he looks in the mirror and we flash between him back in his prime, laughing with Bob and hitting his head in the mirror, and I believe they show that a couple times.
Yes.
You can see on Doppelgänger's face that his own face in the mirror shifts, and he says, "You're still with me."
Yep.
Good. And that gave me some chills. And sadly, we know that Bob, the actor, cannot be with him because he died soon after Twin Peaks ended. And but it's nice to have his spirit there. And we see, as we move on, a man is asking for a guy named Steven. And in comes this guy. He is really kind of ugly. And
he's drugged out.
Yeah. And the man goes ahead and tells Steven that the resume that he submitted was the worst resume he's ever seen. That he needs to get his shit together because no one anywhere is ever going to hire him, and he would never even consider it. And that's before Steven just stares at him a moment and goes ahead and leaves. The next scene,
let's pause right there for a second. About Steven. Yeah, real quick. So, do you actually know who this man is that's giving the guy the business?
Not.
That's one problem I have with the scene, because I looked at it and I go, I know this guy, but who is he? I know this guy. I don't know. And I looked and I looked and I looked, and then I just kept staring at his face, and I noticed his hands because he's fair skin. He's an older gentleman. He's got sun damaged hands or whatever. And then I got a flash later in this episode when we saw a split second, I think, of Nadine and something, and I went, oh, this is Mike, Bobby's friend.
Oh my gosh, it's Mike?
And it totally even, and then I went back and I looked at it and I went, crap, it is him. But there's nothing like a little sign that said Nelson's Insurance or whatever it was that he was doing. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I was so focused on the really drugged out looking kid coming in. If somebody walked into my office like that, I'd be like, call security. I mean, he's just really, looks like he's, you know, gonna do something nasty. So I was more focused on him and it was distracting than Mike. But yes, Mike, drug dealer, Mike and Bob. Remember, there's Mike and Bob, and then there's Mike and Bob. There's two sets of Mike and Bob. So yeah, this is him. It took me a while, and I admit I didn't realize it the first time. I thought, who the hell is this guy? Do I need to pay attention to him? But I go, well, a drug dealer guy with really bad hair and a horrible pencil mustache is like just creeped me out. So they were successful in that, but it was poor execution because they're, like I say, there's not like a nameplate on there that I can recall seeing that said, Mike Nelson or whatever, or Nelson's whatever for business too. It sounded like he was more of a not a recruit, I guess a recruiter, headhunter type thing. I'm not quite sure what he is at this point, but that was the vibe I got from the guy playing him. Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
Wow, I did not know that. That was
Well, that's where I say some of these scenes are, because people age, we know who they are, but we kind of don't. So, I hate being told everything in the show. I don't want to make it sound like it has to be spoon fed, but I have to admit, I totally missed that until I saw him doing the weightlifting with Nadine back in early in season 2.
Hmm.
Yeah, you were going into this next scene, so go ahead with that because I have some strong feelings about this next scene.
Me too. We cut to the Twin Peaks Sheriff Department, and there's new Truman, and he's on the phone talking to his brother, the person we know, Harry Truman. And we can't hear him, obviously, but as he's on the phone, he eventually gets off. And that's when I believe Lucy goes ahead and lets him know his wife is coming. In she comes, and she slams the door behind her and looks at him and says that Dwight is sick and the twins are coming for a visit, and they're going to get mold if he hasn't called somebody to take care of their leaky pipe. He says he did, and he says they're going to fix the leaky pipe after she's gone on this whole tangent about it, talking about her talking about everything under the sun. And as soon as he says that, oh, they're coming, I believe that in like 2 days or something to fix the leaky pipe, she goes ahead and says, so, and we just have to have mold for 2 days. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to collect it in? And he said, did you put in a pot? And she goes ahead and says, yeah. And well, it's not big enough. It just keeps getting filled. And he says, why don't you get a bigger pot? And that's when she goes on about her dad's car. And still, after she's ranting about that, he goes ahead and says he had Sammy check it out, whoever Sammy is. And Sammy said that the car is fine. And she is still not happy. This is somebody that you can never please. It'll never be enough for her. And gosh, maybe it's time for another murder in Twin Peaks.
You're absolutely right because, look, you want to give the story based off the strength of a lot of things, the benefit of the doubt in terms of, well, this is an older woman. You don't know what's going on in Truman's brother's, life and hers. Obviously, him coming and replacing the Truman we know has got to shake things up with the old household. They're used to things a certain way. You get older, life hits you hard with certain things. We don't know what's going on. But let's be blunt, and this is in no way an accident. She's portrayed to be a complete nagging bitch, hellhound, just shriek. It's just awful. But here's the thing. A couple of people that have acted this way really, really emotionally intense in this show, it looks like they're overdoing it because I'm watching her going, I understand she's supposed to be upset and pissed off about certain things, and maybe we're not supposed to know why, but I thought her acting was horrible. I'm looking at this going, yeah, take 2, take 3, take 5, do something. If she's at a 12, dial it to a 10 or something. It felt very forced. It didn't feel very real. And I felt that way, I believe, was an episode or two ago when we first saw Dougie when he was with his escort. Although we'll see her later today, and I think she does a much better job at it. Just those scenes themselves, it just doesn't work for me. I'm going, okay, I guess they're supposed to be really emotionally, you know, having this big gulf between them, because the husband there, the other Truman, he acts really calm, cool, control, like he knows how to handle it really well, and that's great to see. But at some point, it'd be like, shut up! Oh my god! No, I really like the scene because of his acting, because he downplays it, and we see that he's really chill like that. But when you actually go and you're looking at the scene, what made me pop was a little bit, how like we're spotting little owls in the backgrounds, and RRs for like Rancho Rosa, the housing development, Dougie's, and all these little double entendre things while he's on there, while he's getting the Lucy treatment. If you look on the desk, there's a few wooden artifacts and stuff like that, but there's a tiny little Lincoln log cabin, which I don't know why I just saw it. I was like, that's kind of cool looking to me. I don't get it, but it was just sort of neat with all the wood stuff we have to have Lincoln logs like you're a kid or something. I don't know. The next scene though sets up probably to me, which is the most interesting and entertaining part of this entire episode. And this is Dougie being sent off to work by his wife, Janie, especially now that we know Janie had, has this ring that was inscribed that somehow is in this body of this unidentified person that has an unattached head associated with it. That's not it. We're trying to get to the bottom of that. But of course, this is this thing where Dougie just goes through this whole life so far with everybody doing everything for him. And I guess that's supposed to be the thing. He kind of cries a little bit when he sees his son acting kind of weird looking in the car, and his car's not there, and she's like, well, we got 425,000. I hit a special place, I'll go ahead and take you. And we get, of course, the shot of them driving out with the Rancho Rosa with the double R in their circle around it, just in case we missed it before. But one thing I put in here is, like, I think this car pulling up is a Chevy SS Camaro, way back like 60s, 70s special. There's a lot of nice sports cars in here. And this is one driver. This might be the Gene guy who's driving one of the two assassins. He's got a sweet leather jacket, but not, the Big Ed's level. This is just kind of interesting, the whole Dougie thing, and this lady putting these two hitmen out, because we know Dougie's involved in insurance because he gets driven away through the neighborhood. So what will be is that, but not before we get a second muscle car driving up to of another set of people that are after him. So Dougie's got a lot of bad people after him. It looks like the Mafia. It looks like this other group. We don't know who's who for what for that. And then we get to a transition to where it goes into his office building. So let's put a pause on it right there while we catch up here before we get to the meat and potatoes of the episode.
Well, when it comes to that other car, I'm not sure that has anything to do, because it looks like it has a bunch of punks in it. If I have to be honest, they look just like that, like
they're hooligans and are
yes,
scoping out the streets, and they realize this car just drove off.
Yep, and they see the car that's sitting there.
Yep.
But we get to see Dale, Dougie Dale, as he is right now, in the office. He walks through this plaza first, and he stops to see a man that's holding a gun. He goes. We see him lift his hand.
He's picturing this. A statue for those picturing this.
Yes, a statue that's holding this gun. And he goes ahead and tries to copy the motion where it's pointing. And then he follows that direction. He gets quickly to a set of elevators. And there's this one young guy with a bunch of coffee. And he says, oh, come on, Dougie, you better hurry. You don't want to be late for the meeting. And Dale follows him because he has all this coffee.
It's like a dog following you because you got treats. Yes. It's awesome. It's such a great scene.
And the guy tells him that, oh, you want coffee? But I didn't get you one, man. I didn't know you wanted one. You haven't been around the past few days. But then eventually, because of how bad he wants it, he goes ahead and gives them Franks. And Dale drinks it down like a thirsty man in the desert. Then they get out of the elevator, and Dougie's being led a little bit by the young guy, and he slows down whenever he sees people sitting at this waiting area out front.
Because they have cups of coffee too. It looks like he's going to steal them.
But before he can get to him, the young guy quickly grabs him, leads him into the office. And we see another guy played by Tom Sizemore.
That's right. Tom's good.
Yep. And he tells Dougie, hey, how are you? And whispers how he had to cover for his ass. And he better remember that. And then we see a couple more people go inside. The young guy's name we learn is Phil. And we see Frank, who's like, where's my coffee? And Phil says, well, I'm sorry, man. But we have this green tea latte instead if you want it. And ultimately, Frank decides to go ahead and give it a try. And I guess he ends up liking it because he gives a smile afterwards. It's a little odd. But it doesn't matter because it's time for the meeting to start. We see the boss come in. And that's when Phil gets Dougie into his seat. And Doug's boss is looking at him, and ultimately he's like suspicious of what's going on. And that's when we see there's a light on Tom Sizemore as he's going over his reports. And that's when Dale goes ahead and says, he's lying. And the boss says, do you want to tell me why you said that? And Dale doesn't give any information. He doesn't have any information. He just knows he's lying because of that light. And Tom Sizemore is not happy about it. And the boss says that he wants to see him in the office right afterward. And we get pretty much right afterward, right then. He's led into the office by two people. They shut the door. And Dale looks at the poster that's behind the boss that I can't remember what it is right now.
It's a poster of a boxer who's actually that boss.
Oh, yes.
That's just him. So it's something from his youth, the big thing behind his desk.
Yeah.
Bushnell Mullins, battling Bud.
Battling Bud. Well, battling Bud goes ahead and asks why he can think that he can say Tom was lying. Tom's his best boss, and you haven't been around for 3 days, so why do you think you can do that? And ultimately, he doesn't have an answer. He doesn't have anything. So the boss goes ahead and gives him a bunch of files and says, I want this finished before tomorrow. And they're agent case files, and it starts to trigger something in Dale. You can see it. But then we go to where he's outside and he really has to pee. There's this girl that's there, and she leads him to the bathroom door. And this is a girl that was in the meeting and telling some other guy to screw off because, well, I guess she wasn't into him. But Dougie, she goes ahead and she's flirting with him, and he just can't really realize it because he's mentally deficient at the moment. And he really has to go to the bathroom. So she says, well, you go ahead and go, and we can talk about it sometime later. And that's when he finally gets his moment.
Yeah, for me, I really like this scene a lot. It's pretty uninterrupted, which is great. So we see Dougie, like you said, going off after the coffee. When he goes in the elevator, he just walks in there and he never turns around like most everybody does. It's kind of just one of those things. He eventually does because he's looking at the coffee. One thing before we even talk a little bit more about the office scene here is when he's looking at the statue of the person pointing it with the gun and it's towards the building, there is a few red balloons in the background. And you pointed out some red balloons at the drug dealers, the woman who's constantly hopped up on drugs near Dougie with the little kid. And so I don't know if I'm up to 5 at least. I don't think there's going to be 99 where I've got 94 to go. That's an 80s reference out there. 99 Love Balloons by Lena or whatever. Go ahead.
I was waiting for it to come up in my notes. I remembered it, but I didn't remember when I noticed
I just don't know if it means anything, but now I can't stop seeing that, like I'm looking for owls, I'm looking for lights. I'm looking
Why are there red
for
balloons everywhere? That
yeah,
and they're all the same balloon. If you look at them, these are the same balloons. They have the same kind of shape, and
yep,
they're all
yeah,
these
they do.
perfectly round red balloons, and it's really interesting.
And one scene that always gets lauded too about office politics is the business card scene from American Psycho with Christian Bale and a few others from, I think, 1999, 2000, let's say. It's a fantastic scene. This scene, I'm not going to say rivals it, but it's pretty interesting because you do have these dynamics of people covering for each other. The person who's a big, heavy salesperson always gets preferential treatment. You always have the person that may seem like they're low end on a totem pole and they're doing all the gopher work, but yet they're an extremely important cog of a really truly functional type of atmosphere that this business seems to have. It's a beautiful looking office building. It's neat. It's trim. Obviously, they're not going to make it look junky because it's production values. Tom Sizemore is great at being this kind of skeezy, bro sort of dude. The dude that's hitting on the girl, I don't know if her name's Rhonda or something. I can't quite make out the name on her coffee, but he's a complete dope. She is a honey. She is cute. She's built. She's nice. One thing I did want to point out at the table here is while the guy getting coffee is kind of twerpy looking, even though he's dressed nice, getting the coffee. It's funny because the guy that didn't get the coffee, he's like, "Well, I want that," and he's gonna go try like the latte, a green tea one. I think this guy, and I didn't look at the credits. I think this guy is the guy that plays Jacques Renault. Those brothers there, like we said before, we saw him at the end of episode 1, serving drinks at the bar, even though he was dead. It looks like it's the same actor but cleaned up here. It just freaked me out, like going, "Wow, that's got to be him," just because maybe they didn't have somebody else at the last minute to play. I don't know. But I actually thought this was a great business thing because this is exactly what happens. The boss always comes in there. He says, makes people start. They're going around. Everyone's looking at stuff or whatever. And to your point, when he sees the light, he's like, Elias, if you're going to call somebody out, you better eviscerate them cleanly in a business meeting. You cannot do all that. So the boss did the right thing. This is phenomenal. I give Lynch a lot of credit for putting something like this in because it's just supposed to be a Dougie Dale scene, but there's so much more to it that is really great. And to your point that you said earlier, it feels weird that we're not in Twin Peaks physically and we're so far away, but then to have a scene like this in here is really good. I really do like this because after, like you say, he seems like he's starting to recognize things subconsciously about getting the extra work that he has to do, the case files, as it were. This cute little honey, I'm gonna call her Rhonda for now. God, she's even better looking when she sees Dougie. He's like, oh, because he's doing the PP dance. She's like, well, I'll let you in the ladies' room. Maybe I'll kiss you right now too. So I'm going, man, Dougie's getting a lot of action, even though he's a kind of a crappy insurance salesman. It's like, whatever. And she gets this look on her face while he's in there doing his business, like, oh. And I don't know if she's like wanting to have an affair, currently having an affair, had one, because I think she had a ring on her finger too. So I don't know if that's really going to be a minor character or not, but we get to what I call the Mafia Scene next, where we see the Stranger Things scientist guy with the beard who's running it. We see some heavy hitters walk in while they're all reviewing film of Dale, or actually Dougie Dale, winning, was it $425,000 with all these jackpots? They beat the crap out of them, say, leave town. And you know who's playing the muscle in this scene?
Yes. Yes.
Do you?
Jim Belushi.
Yeah, I thought he did good. What I didn't get about this scene, though, and I wanted to bring it up, is because there's not much to it other than the next scrub up gets the position or whatever. I don't really care about all that. There's clips, and I don't know if this is editing, because like I said before, the Mike Nelson scene made me a little suspicious about what's going on. But here we see against a gray wall 3 blondes dressed up in like 1940s Vegas gear, I guess, because they got the long arm sleeves and the strapless one-piece top skirt combo or whatever. They look like kind of like almost a Playboy bunny type thing or something, and you don't ever see them like in the background of what's going on in the scene. So I'm going, I guess they walked in with the muscle and they're just waiting for their men to kick a little ass or something, because I don't know that we actually see them leave. It just, the editing of it was weird to me. And I just go, I don't get it. They had all the time and effort to put all the high production values in these shows, and sometimes I still think I see some stuff like that. It seems really blatant. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I really do like this scene.
Right.
And like I said, we see in my notes, I didn't even list that there were 3 girls there. I saw the
It's the
first
weird,
one,
but
and
they're
then
not very
Jim
long.
Belushi distracted
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have our priorities.
But don't worry, there are some there are some ladies to know this a little later. But first, we get back to Dougie's car, and the little kid is looking at it. His mom is just passed out, and while he goes ahead and leaves, he heads to the car, and he's looking down, and he sees the bomb that the guy that was trying to kill him before had set. And he goes ahead and he's poking at it, but that's when the punks come back and tell the kid to go away. They quickly get into the car, start it up, and 2 of them blow up. The kid runs home, and he shuts the door with the mom stirring. And there's this deep tone in the music as we see the wreckage. And, well, I mean, they were punks. From there, we quickly see a car wash, and we see Jade. And Jade is the lady that original Dougie, the real Dougie, was with. And she finds in her car the hotel key for the Great Northern Lodge. And she sees on the back there's a return to address, and she goes ahead and just tosses it in. And that's where I'll go ahead and let you take your.
Yeah, the punks in the black sports car. Get you some of that. I was like, okay, what the hell's the whole point of all this too, other than just some side developments? I don't mind it. It looks good. I'm glad they got, if you know what I'm saying. The key thing was kind of neat too, because it means, okay, we're still gonna see Jade maybe a little bit. It's a real quick scene too, so I'm assuming her storyline's not quite 100% done. But from there we get a Twin Peaks scene, actually. So do you want to take it because it's Twin Peaks, or shall I?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so we're back at the diner, and it's the same diner. I believe they filmed in it and everything too. What's really cool about this next scene here is you get to finally see Norma, who had passed away not too long, I think, after this came out or whatever. And she was older. You can tell, like, with her lips a little bit, but she's aged so well, and she looks exactly the same in a sense. And Shelly's there too, and Shelly's aged, but she's aged magnificently. She's just a gorgeous woman. It's nice to see these two together because they always seem like they have it, and that chemistry is definitely here in this scene. Norma's doing a bunch of paperwork and stuff like that. And what's neat too, when you're just watching parts of what's the action in here, and you see people sitting down and stuff, it seems a little more expansive, or at least the way it's shot, because we get shots of the outside with the sunshine. We didn't quite get that before, so you see how the diner's kind of modernized a little bit too. But apparently we get to see Shelly's boyfriend, which happens to be the scuzz bucket that was trying to get a job with Mike. He pulls up in like this vintage looking Trans Am thing, T-tops, where Shelly gives him some money. What's his name? Is it Toad? No,
no,
it's
not Shelly's.
Toad.
Not Shelly's.
Not Shelly. Shelly's daughter. Becky's. Excuse me. Becky's. Yeah. So Shelly's daughter, Becky's boyfriend. It's like, okay, now I see what happened. See, this is what made me go back and look at whatever. And Toad's actually a cook at the diner. It's not the name of her boyfriend, whose name escapes me right now. It's one of those situations where young adults begging for money and saying, I love you, thank you so much. And he's a bum because he's sitting there in this T-top car, even though it's a sweet car. He looks so drugged out. He looks so horrible. Part of me is going, he looks as bad as the drugged out female druggie with the kid that we've just seen in a couple episodes, and just in a scene or two before in this one. I just go, they brother sister? Is it something? And this is a side chick? I don't know. But obviously, she's played by Amanda. How do you say it? Seyfried? Seafried?
I think it's
Yeah,
Seyfried.
who I think's mildly talented compared to some of her, contemporaries or whatever. I certainly don't mind her at all, and I think she does well in here. But you do, like I say, they drive off, and you get a scene here where they're driving off, where the guy's like sweet talking her stuff. He backs up. He has some coke. He makes her make out. She's kind of pissy, but of course he says all the right things, and she takes a little hit herself. And then we get this little, not dream sequence, but like a music piece too, The Way That You Love Me, and she's just high as a kite off of it. So obviously the drug trade has continued its presence in Twin Peaks, as it were, because that was one of the main focuses of season one. Mike and Bob were dealing drugs back at the time. Now we see Mike and Bob older here, even though we haven't seen Bobby in a while, as respectable, allegedly, members of what Twin Peaks too. And now you have drugs with some young people here as well too. So it's like a full circle comes around. The song that's playing is "I Love How You Love Me," and it's an old thing. I've heard it before. It's not too popular, but it's a neat scene. I think it makes you feel like you're in Twin Peaks, and this is cool because at this ends, it then goes back to Dougie in an elevator. So let's pause there while you rattle off your observations, sir.
Yeah, during that scene, I didn't know exactly what to make of it. Clearly, Shelly,
crappy daughter with an even worse boyfriend.
Right?
Yeah,
that's really ultimately what it is. And Norma and Shelly just doing their best to, or well, really Norma's trying her best to support Shelly. And that's what there really is there. In this next scene, though, it's really quick. Dale's with the files, and he is facing everyone in the elevator. And then when it's open, everybody's yelling at him to move because he's just standing there and staring at everybody. He gets basically pushed out, and he eventually walks out into the plaza again, and he's staring at the statue. And that's where I really noticed it. The red balloon on top of one of the buildings just up there. Right. And now he just seems to be waiting as he's looking at the leg of the statue and then up at it again. And that's a really quick scene before we go ahead and move to the sheriff's department, where Andy eventually goes ahead and asks if Hawk has found any Indians. And Hawk pretty much says
a beautiful line with a beautiful delivery. I mean, this is getting so much from so little. It's a great scene. They're in the office with cups of coffee. They are our to-go boxes, half-eaten donuts, and he just says, "Hawk, have you found any Indians?" It's so horrible. Sorry. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was done well.
No, it's definitely it's not horrible. It could be worse. But that is when do you want to take this next scene?
This next scene is basically a cut to a trailer park at 7:00 in the evening, and there's Dr. Jacoby doing a live podcast. He's doing everything on his own with his own weird gadgets and stuff like that. It's
we have damn competition now.
I'm sure Dr. Jacoby's dead now, but I don't know. Well, actually, the actor Russ Tamlin's still alive. I think he's like closing in on 90. He's very spry in a scene here. I actually kind of like this because it's supposed to be subversive radio. Contemporary. I won't name names because the YouTube algo and stuff, but that's what I think it's supposed to be a play on. But there's obviously a lot of people, from the 80s and 90s dealing with UFOs and those kinds of things. And I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. I'll simply say is I was a little disappointed in the scene because his energy level's high. The whole underground podcasting thing I think is great. We get a shot of Nadine in here, and Nadine's aged, but she looks great in here too. She's got the eye patch on still too. She's listening. I'm looking at this going, I was expecting something a bit more sinister because of the way we saw it in episode 1 when he was getting the shovels, because you think of burying dead bodies or unburying buried treasure, looking for stuff. There's that air of mystery to it. And all it turns out is that we spray painting them gold because after he goes through his big rant about homeopathic type stuff here and, anti this, that, whatever, he's just talking these gold-plated, fake gold-plated shovels for $29.99, which makes sense. hawking your wares and making your money that way. But they go so absurd. And this is the first time I think they've been totally absurd in this whole episode, probably even the season, if I think about it. He's like, they'll help you shovel out of your own shit because that's what you need to do, if you're ever stuck in trouble. And they show him standing knee high with his big boots on in shit, and he's shoveling it. It's like,
I'm using my cosmic flashlight to expose the shit.
Shovel your way out of shit and into the truth. Dig yourself out of shit for $29.99. And it's got a really schlocky thing, huh?
I'm surprised he didn't start going about the chemicals that are in the water and the frogs that are, turning gay.
Watch what you say. Watch what you say. Yeah.
I'm not saying the name.
Yeah, it's just, I don't hate the scene, and I guess it's a little, maybe because of all the funny stuff we've had, it makes me think it's funny. I was just hoping for a little more sinister with Jacoby. I thought, oh, Jacoby's even older, and he's on his own, and he's buying an RV park, and he might be crazy old man stuff. Oh, that's going to be good. And it turns out, well, maybe it'll still be that way. We'll see. But then we head to the Pentagon, and you take the scene.
Yes. We see a woman go in, and there is, oh crap, what's his name?
Ernie Hudson.
Yes, from Ghostbusters. Ernie Hudson. He is there, and
the substitute with Tom Berenger.
Yes. We see the woman say that they have found prints for Major Garland Briggs. It's been 16 hits for the last 25 years. The woman's name's Sydney, and the guy says that go ahead and look into it. But if it's real, if it's really real, and it's not real, but if it is real, they have to tell the FBI. It's really quite a quick scene. And it's
the only thing I'll say about it is that it's, Garland Briggs obviously has the military background with it that's been alluded to, and the character or the actor playing the character had passed away too. He had a successful career, obviously doing a bunch of things as a media type artist himself, physical media, and he also was in Stargate. So it was a shame that he wasn't going to be around because I think he could have had a much bigger role. That being said, I like how his storyline's still being intertwined into here. I like how we get the paranoid alleged Dr. Jacoby, which I was hoping that would be a bit more, like you say, darker or whatever, rather than goofy. But I think it's great to have this kind of a scene to show the escalation of what's going on, how significant Garland Briggs is, because they get a hit with people trying to find out the prints. So we're assuming something having to do with the decapitated head and or body that's there has to do with Garland Briggs, because it's Buckhorn, South Dakota, and they're getting ready to get there. So we got this Cindy lady getting ready to go check out. So I think this is the Air Force general. And to your point, it's like, wow, I like how Lynch has competing government agencies getting in the way of each other, because you've got Sheriff Twin Peaks, you've got so that's local, you've got the FBI, which will then usually supersedes that, but then you have this other one. And it's just, that shows how convoluted government gets. Just like if somebody's missing across international lines, like is happening here in Florida with a case, if you're following social media, you got the FBI, you've got Dog the Bounty Hunter, you've got all sorts of things. And it's like, we don't know anything, and nobody can get anything done because they're too big of an organization. So ultimately, I still feel like Lynch is showing us all that how big the government gets means they're ineffective despite the resources. I think it's still going to come down to good Dale versus bad Dale, Dougie Dale, Doppeldale, excuse me, and I think they're going to end up in Twin Peaks. That's why the way this is going, why they're not in Twin Peaks, I know that kind of jars you a little bit. I kind of do like that, actually. It's one of those things where I'm going, I kind of feel like that's what it's going to go to. And I don't know if I'll be disappointed if it doesn't, but I really am liking what we're at so far. Because there's not much more to the rest of this episode, is there?
There's a good bit, actually.
Well, there's an interesting scene here, but go ahead and take it.
Okay. Well, first we go to the Roadhouse. There are people dancing, and we see a guy smoking right next to a no smoking sign.
How dare he? Secondhand is the worst. This guy, I'm going to say, this guy looks like the millennial version of Matthew McConaughey. He's got a really shiny face.
I mean, he's got those punk vibes too, though, because he's staring over at the next table, and it's these four girls, and they're all hanging out. And then an employee comes over and asks him to stop smoking. The guy says, "Make me." But then I think we see Chad, I think that's his name, come
Yes,
over.
Chad.
And he says he'll handle it. And the employee goes away. And then he says to go ahead and give him a smoke. This guy gives the whole pack. And there's cash inside.
Yep.
And that's when Chad pretty much goes out. And a girl from the next table goes over. And she asks for a light. And she sits with him. And that's when he grabs her and pulls her against him and asks if she wants him to put it in the friendliest terms when he can't really. And that's when
she wants to get some. It's obvious because there's a group of girls there. And so you're right, it's a very delicate scene, the way to describe it, because he's rough with her and not in a good way. And immediately once that happens, it escalated too quickly. Yeah, and he's very handsy.
That's when the other girls are saying to pretty much leave her alone. The one thing that I noticed, and I'm in just how he's speaking directly, could this guy, whatever his name is, could this be a new Bob? I'm not sure, and that could just be overlooking it, but that's what I thought it could be.
I say no, just because I think there's only one Bob, because Bob is a spirit, and while he's occupying a body now, I don't think he can go out. I mean, yeah, it was alluded, I guess, that there were other ones, and we kind of don't know the rules of what's going on there with, Gerard and Bob and Mike and all that. But this guy is just, you're right, he's evil. He's bad news. At first, he seemed like a punk, and Chad was that jerk off guy in Twin Peaks, the sheriff or whatever. So I don't know if he's doing security or just knows the guy at the diner here, or the Roadhouse, I should say. But he's a punk anyway, so he's up to no good. And he knows who this guy. We don't know who this one is. So, but the girls, like I said, she's definitely interested in the guy. They're kind of watching him and eyeball him because he's got that, hey, I'm smoking where the no smoking sign is kind of thing or whatever. You're like, oh, he's so, alpha, whatever. It's just stupid. But no, he does a good job, the actor, when he starts grabbing her, because like I say, he gets too handsy with her, and it is creepy watching. He literally at one point is holding her by the throat with his arm around it, and she's just sitting there. And we don't, of course, see a resolution to the scene. That's the kind of part to it. Yeah, I don't know who he is. Doesn't look like another character, so I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and take just this last scene, and then I'll go ahead and hand it to you so you can finish this off. We see a classic picture of Dale Cooper in his suit as he's supposed to be. And we see the agent that's with Gordon Cole and Albert now. She's in like this cubicle, and her name, I believe, is Tammy.
Tammy, yeah.
She's staring at the picture and compares it to the other picture, the shot that they got of Doppeldale.
Mm-hmm.
Then she's looking at the prints, and as she's staring and really comparing, she notices something. It doesn't tell us, but we can tell that something is supposed to be off. And that's all we see before we cut.
Yeah, for this scene here, as I said before, she's definitely a gorgeous, beautiful woman, has an exotic look to her face. There's an intelligence behind her eyes. I think she's well cast. But the thing about her, she almost has this throwback Lauren Bacall kind of classy lady air about her. And I don't know if that's her as an actress or just the way she's trying to play this character. I don't really know anything about her. But she was comparing the two photographs. The one that we talked about before, I went, oh my God, they made Doppeldale look like he's 6'3", in a chart or whatever. But what she's doing is she's looking at the two and going, wow, they look like they're the same. And so she starts looking at their fingerprints. And so it looks like she's comparing the one for Dale Cooper versus some of the ones that they found. So it's kind of like, oh, and so she's getting like almost a little bit of an aha. So this
So
is just to carry the whole bit of work of the Blue Rose group, let's call it, there with Cooper's boss and Albert. Yeah. So
So
go ahead.
here's a little interesting tidbit of outside information. There's 2 books. One book came out before this season aired. It was supposed to be a kind of dossier on Twin Peaks by Mark Frost. David Lynch himself has said that he doesn't consider it canon, really. It's really Mark Frost's vision of Twin Peaks. But there's a lot of information in there that connects things. And most of this information is compiled. They don't know how, but it's marked to TP. And what is Tammy's initials are TP. Tammy, I believe, like Preston. Yeah. So a TP, Twin Peaks, Tammy Preston. There's a lot of TPs here. So a lot of people theorize that maybe the agent was looking at this dossier. This agent TP might be Tammy Preston.
Yeah, I'm aware of those kinds of things. I've never read any of them, so I don't know what they may have or have not. And I'm aware that Lynch and Frost had their different viewpoints on how to flesh things out. So Lynch is obviously basically the man when everybody thinks about it, but let's not forget that Mark Frost is a guy, I think he wrote on Hill Street Blues and stuff like that. That's considered one of the best written shows of all time. The guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to flesh out procedural type stuff, which is always neat. Whereas Lynch kind of says, okay, let's try that. And he's more of the artist behind it. So I think it works well. I'm not quite sure. I'm under the impression that there's a lot of detail that's in like the secret dossier of Twin Peaks, and I think there's a couple other ones too that fill out some of the characters' backstories and the locations on. I think that's kind of cool that they did all that, and that's how they hyped up actually the show a little bit, is by writing a book for it as they were prepping for it, getting ready, because you revisit your material, you want to flesh it out and stuff. So hey, more power to you, Mark Frost. I'm glad that you did that. Yeah, because you're right. This scene here is obviously, like I say, it's just a little bit of something that's going on detective work wise. So it just makes us know, okay, they're getting closer. All of a sudden things are going to converge to South Dakota. But you get a last scene of the episode is you get, or second to last scene really, is you get the warden taking a look at Doppledale, as you say. He calls him in, and we saw Doppledale earlier kind of predict some information going on, but he plugs in a phone and says, okay, you get your one call. And with that, everything goes bonkers for a split second. And they're all in the control room because they know they're trying to record everything. And we see Doppledale, who knows, and he's looking up. And everything's flashing, all the alarms are going off. And then they quickly stop. And he says, the cow jumped over the moon. I'm like, okay, I get there's goofiness in it, but that just kind of ruined whatever dark tone Doppledale had. Because if you're going to be dark, you got to say little and not be caught in goofy situations. This felt goofy to me. And actually, the more sinister of the 2 scenes is the next one, which is just another quick cut to Buenos Aires, Argentina, as we're told. And we see a light bulb, which reminds me of a scene earlier where we just saw a light bulb, where the camera then pans down into, I don't know, looks like an attic or something. And we see this electronic device with 2 lights on, a little tiny black box that looks like it's some sort of copper wash basin or something like that. And the lights are going off. It's what we saw earlier with the one lady that hired the hitman, except for it looks like the device itself seems to immediately turn into one tiny little ball. Not that perfect golden sphere that we saw that happened in the Red Room earlier, but just something like that. And then it just cuts to Dougie Dale still kind of looking at the statue, and the guy basically saying, hey, you moved along. And it just looks like he's, rubbing shoes, and that's it. Fade to credits.
I could have sworn we had heard basically that the cow jumped over the moon before in Twin Peaks at some point. I made a note of it saying that sound, even though we've all heard the rhyme, yes, it's something that's been there before, and I can't remember when or where. Maybe I'm just misremembering, but something about that it's a coded message of some sort. And when the alarms are going off and he's just staring, it's really freaking out the people there. And not to not talk about Argentina, but we just see the box that we saw earlier, and it beeps and shrinks. So we're not sure what to make of that.
Well, let's talk about this here real quick as we finish up. We know Doppelgänger has some sort of plan. So it seems like he has to be arrested. So do you think he allowed himself to be arrested? It sounds like he is allowing everything to happen so he can be found. And I don't have a problem with that, but is that how you see it?
No.
How do you see it?
Because if he only got arrested because of what happened on the freeway, he spit up some toxic cream corn, and that's how the police found him. And the stuff in his car was enough to go ahead and lock him up for a little while at least. So we are just, he's kind of in a situation, but I don't think he's necessarily wanting this, but he's working with it.
I don't know. I mean, he obviously knew the time that he was supposed to, I guess, for lack of a better description, be returned to the Red Room, was able to somehow avoid it. So to me, I just feel like it's all intentional. And when you have something like this, where he says the cow jumped over the moon, it's like, okay, it's crap until it means something. Because I don't know if I recall. I'm not saying that it hasn't been, but I don't know. I don't know if he's just trying to be a jerk to the cops, because it came off as cute to me rather than mysterious or something, just because of the childlike meaning of the phrase or whatever too. I don't know how else to think of it. So I'm not mad at or upset with it. It just seemed a little off, I guess. So not bad, but it was just kind of So anyway, I just, like I say, entertaining episode to me, or really more interesting and entertaining. But the Dougie stuff in the middle with the coffee and the office scene was fantastic. Dougie's a character that, even though we know he's not really the Dougie that would be in the real life of Twin Peaks, because his mind is blank right now, it's interesting to kind of see how that's going to develop. I was not necessarily expecting him to be the biggest thing. I thought, oh, okay, we'll flip bodies here, then somehow there'll be a race to Twin Peaks, and maybe in a way that is, and Dougie's just the rabbit, if you will, that we're chasing here after. So I'm getting used to going, well, I think we're going to see a lot more Dougie before we see of Twin Peaks or anything else there too. And I don't mind it, actually. I think it's been pretty good. It's kind of weird to say that, because it feels like some of these episodes are actually very slow and the scenes go very long, which I don't mind, rather than they seem like they're going fast because of quick cuts and editing and everything else there too. And there doesn't seem to be too much over the top acting or emotional tirades, and the few that we've had, I felt like were poorly acted, like the other Truman's wife tonight. But I don't know, maybe there's something to that. We'll see. What are your final thoughts?
The only thing that I really have to mention at this moment is that the main reason I enjoy this episode a little more than any of the others thus far is because it ends with just Cooper there at the statue, like
No
touching
music.
his shoelaces. We finally move away from the stupid bands. Thank God. That's my final. Those are my final thoughts.
Cool deal. Yeah, there's a lot going on here too, and like I said, sometimes, with everything going on, you might miss something little. That's why it's always neat to kind of talk these things out here too. Be interesting to see what happens next episode. So that's 5 episodes down out of 18. So we're about a third, almost of the way through. So we're not even at the halfway point. So it's moving at a very deliberate pace. It's very digestible. It's been a lot of fun. Whatever concerns I may have had about it are gone. This is enjoyable. So for that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say thanks for listening. I know we've had some people comment about some things that they've seen in episodes. If there's something that we are missing or you've caught or you have a theory on, let us know on that too. Check out our Base of Operations Extreme Movie Show. It's Halloween month here in October. We're going to be dropping a lot of additional content just to celebrate the month that it is. If you got any special requests, of course, TV or movie-wise, let us know. I'm your host, Rob, here with Professor Pixel, as it were. Thanks for listening as always. Have a good night and stay extreme.